Okay, welcome to all. I have mute everybody. So welcome to all. Bienvenue à tous. My name is Binish Saxena, and I'm your host. This is our first public meeting of the Center for Consciousness Development. And please note, this event will be recorded. Now, let me tell you how this project started. I have been interested in the spirituality and humanity for the long time. I have established a foundation, and this foundation has two objectives: help the needy, people who are in financial difficulty. If you know somebody who is in financial difficulty, please refer to us, we will help. And the second objective is explore unanswered questions. Now, what are unanswered questions? Is soul there? Is there life after life? Is God there? So this, I have been teaching yoga for more than 10, 15 years now. Before yoga used to be in the gymnasium of the school. Now it is on the Zoom each Saturday from 8:30 to 10. So if somebody wants to join, the link will be available in the chat. By profession, I am an engineer and MBA. So the logic plays some part in my thinking. Now, when I see different religions and spiritual practices, it may be chanting, it may be praying, it may be yoga, Tai Chi, or walking in the nature. I ask myself a question: what is going on here? What are these people are trying to do? So after contemplating on this question, I have come to the conclusion the objective is to raise the consciousness. Now, there are many circumstances and situations which are very difficult to explain. And there are, again, more unanswered questions, like where does space end? Why some people have psychic experience, like a clairvoyance or mediumship and so on, and majority of the people does not have. Why some people are filthy rich? Why some people are on the street not having even to eat? Why some people are in the initial stage of their life are very poor and they become very successful after. Take an example of Steve Jobs or John Walsh, writer of the Conversations with God. These people did not even have enough to eat in the beginning, and later in the life they were very successful. So one can say that maybe it is a karma, but it will be very difficult to explain the transition, that how somebody can be very poor in the beginning, not enough to eat, and then later on he can be very rich. Then you can say that it is not a karma, it is a free will, but even then there are a lot of unanswered questions. So when we look at all those things, we come to the conclusion that there is something bigger and greater than the reality which we see or feel. And there is a universal consciousness. We can call it God, or we can call something else. So there is something more powerful than us. So looking at all these points, we come to the conclusion that best thing is to raise our consciousness and try to tap in this universal consciousness. If we can do that, we can be in the state of bliss, we can heal ourselves, we can have intuition, and maybe we can get answers to the unanswered questions. This is why, keeping all these things, we have established what is called Center for Consciousness Development, and we want to do activities which will help to raise the consciousness. So with that introduction, some people already know Rey Hernandez. Rey Hernandez is the executive director of CCRI, which is a Consciousness and Contact Research Institute, which comprises of many learned personalities. He is also an author or co-editor of 820-page book titled Beyond UFOs, The Science of Consciousness and Contact with Non-Human Intelligence. And now Rey's new project is 4-volume book and a full feature science documentary titled A Greater Reality, the New Paradigm of Non-Local Consciousness, the Paranormal, and the Contact Modalities. It is all too much to understand. When I was talking to Rey, I was very touched by the incident. He told me that he was completely atheist. And then later on, something happened which changed completely his belief system. And I hope he will share that experience. If everybody becomes atheist to non-atheist, I think the world may be a little different. So with all that introduction, I will ask Rey to take over. Rey?
Yes, I was on mute. Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Vanesh. Many of those questions that you posed are really life's eternal questions. You know, my conclusion at this point is that the only way we're going to be able to find out is after we pass, after we transition, because these are really some of the most complicated questions known to humanity. And at this point, we're pretty much clueless in terms of most of those questions that you asked. But all of us are on a journey. A lot of us are on a personal journey to find out those questions that you just asked, and I'm one of them. And I don't have answers. I'm just trying to understand what questions to ask. That's how complicated this is. But at least I've been blessed with certain experiences and put in contact with certain individuals that I've been working with over since 2013 on these issues. So let me tell you a little bit about more of my journey, and let me start my PowerPoint now. I had my screen up. Okay, can people see that screen? No, because you can't see that screen now that I put up?
I can see it, yeah.
Okay, great. So let me start the PowerPoint, and I'll be skipping over a lot of information because this is slideshow from the beginning. Okay. And please let me know whether you see the large screen. Do you see my picture there in front?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Okay, thank you. Again, everyone, please write down my email, because I will be giving you almost 500 pages of our book, the first book, and I'll be sending you information about our second book. So my email is info@experiencer.org, info@experiencer.org. Please send me an email, and I will send you tons of information about our research study and data and statistics for much of the information that I'm going to be talking about. So that'll be free. And then I'll be sending you for our new book, the table of contents, a one-page introduction of our new book, and the topics that I'll be presenting. So it's info@experiencer.org. Our website, experiencer.org, will not be available until December 1st. And that's the date that we're going to be launching our new book. So I'm going to be talking about two organizations, the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Free Foundation, and then the current organization, CCRI, or the Consciousness and Contact Research Institute. As you can see, I'm overeducated. I have a whole bunch of degrees. I've been studying for most of my life, and I'm almost 65 years old. So now what I'm going to be telling you is about the first 4 years of my paranormal experiences. They stopped after approximately 4 years. And as Vinesh said, previous to March of 2012, I had zero interest in UFOs, the paranormal, non-human intelligence, the question of consciousness. I just wasn't familiar with these things, and I had zero interest on these topics. And I also was an atheist, materialist, rationalist at that time. This is a picture of my wife, my daughter, who is now 19 years old. She's a sophomore in college now. And that's me many years ago when I was much younger. And this is our dog, Nena. And the reason why all of us are in the picture is that all of us, including Nena, we've all have had contact with non-human intelligence. Let me explain. It explained on March 3rd, 2012, Nena became totally paralyzed. She had severe arthritis, a bad heart, and walked like an old lady before her paralysis. And then around 8 o'clock at night, she became totally paralyzed. We called our vet. The vet said that she probably had a stroke, a cerebral hemorrhage, and we made arrangements to euthanize her the very next day. So my wife, being a good hardcore Catholic, she began to pray all night. And again, prayer is so important. Not necessarily a religious prayer, but you making overtures to the universal mind. Many prayers are responded to. And what happened? The next morning at 6 o'clock, we checked our dog out. Our dog was still paralyzed. I went back to bed. My wife carried our dog down the stairs to see if she can go to the bathroom. And this is what she saw in our living room. And she thought that that was an angel. And she began to pray. And then whatever this object was, which is semi-translucent, and it would phase in and out of reality. At one point, it was metallic type of color, and then other times it would phase out of reality. And it would be metallic glowing, like it had its own inner energy inside of it. And so then these two green lights shot out and started like scanning her. And so she immediately started yelling at me to come down, not because she was scared, but because she wanted me to see her angel. So after I totally ignored her, she went upstairs, she hauled me out of bed. And so she wouldn't tell me what it was. And so she was walking in front of me, going down the stairs, and I was behind her. Then all of a sudden, she disappeared. Okay. The dog disappeared. And then I had what is called tunnel vision. I couldn't see anything around this periphery. Everything was all dark. The only area I could see was in this graphic depiction. And what I saw was an energy being, okay, a plasma energy being with multiple colors. And it was semi-transparent. And immediately, I didn't care that my wife disappeared, that our dog disappeared. I didn't even care that I was watching that plasma energy being. In other words, whatever this intelligent was, it totally got into my consciousness and totally controlled my consciousness, where I didn't even care what I was watching. I then looked at it, squinted my eyes, and I waved my hand at it, and I said, BS. This is what my wife got me up for this thing? This is nothing. I'm going back to sleep. So then I turned around, I walked back up the stairs, and immediately I was knocked out. About 45 minutes or 50 minutes later, when I woke up, I became fully conscious and immediately ran downstairs. Then my wife, poof, reappeared right in front of me. The dog was now running around the entire living room. She had a miraculous medical healing. And then she started yelling in Spanish, the angels cured her, the angels cured her. And Nena was running around like a puppy, fully healed. She had a miraculous medical healing. And so on that day, my conception of reality was completely shattered. And then, but I thought that this was paranormal related initially. And so I was going to the internet, researching the paranormal. What is that? Was it a ghost or a spirit? Was this an angel? But then what happened was 2 months later, Nena, our dog, woke my wife up at 3:30 in the morning. And so my wife then brought her down the stairs and opened the back door, but Nena did not want to go in the back door. She was jumping on the front door. And so my wife opened the front door, and we live in a very safe middle-class neighborhood with large lots. And so my wife heard this very, very loud noise. And then all of a sudden she looked up, and this is what she saw. It was a gigantic, elongated, football-shaped object with triangular sides. And she said to me, "Oh, my angels came and visited me last night. They came in a beautiful angelic craft. It had stained glass windows, just like our church." And so I asked her to draw it, and she drew something very similar to this. And then I said, "You didn't see an angel. What you saw was a UFO." She goes, "Oh, you wouldn't understand because you're an atheist. Those were my angels." So that's when I first realized that this was somehow UFO related. So over the next 2 months, my wife would go outside and pray and see these huge objects. She then went to Mexico, and she spent there a month. And there, with her family members, they saw these huge UAPs, UFOs, that appeared to her with her praying. And so in August of 2012, this was 6 months after that initial experience in my living room, after my wife had told me what had been happening to her, I then said, okay, let me try to call down this UFO because I also wanted to give it thanks for healing our dog, because our dog was a family member. And so within 15 minutes, this huge object appeared, and it was translucent. You could see the clouds behind it. And this was at night. And I won't give you all the details that occurred here, but basically there was telepathic communications that took place. They got into my consciousness and put my daughter's voice in my consciousness, that my daughter wanted to see this UFO. So I run to the window, I call down my daughter, so then she joins me. And then when my friends came that I was waiting outside for, they began to question what this was. And then after a minute, I just started to laugh because what they were saying, their explanations were just made me laugh. It was just hilarious. And so then in my mind, I told this intelligence, I said, you better come up with something better than this because my friends don't believe you. And then immediately what we were watching was totally replaced by hundreds of very large stars that were blinking on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off, inside where that object is. And anyway, there was other things that took place which showed that I was interacting with my mind with this intelligence, and it was instantaneous interaction. And they got rid of that holographic projection that they were showing me initially and put something totally different. Because I said, you know, my friends don't believe you, you know, come up with something different. Boom, you know, something different appeared. So after this experience, which lasted more than 45 minutes with this, I call it UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon, that was less than 30 feet away from us, my daughter and my three friends. After this began a series of paranormal and psychic experiences, out-of-body experiences, synchronicities, physics downloads, other UAP, UFO sightings, and 3 NDE-related experiences, all within 4 years. Now, let me talk about what Vanesh had alluded to. Here I was, an atheist, materialist, with many, many years of education. I had gone to the University of California, Berkeley for a Ph.D. That's the school that had won the most Nobel Prize winners in the world. So my mindset was as a rationalist, a scientist, a materialist, and certainly an atheist. And let me skip over a lot of the paranormal experiences here and just focus on the near-death experiences. The day after I had that experience, okay, with this object here, I saw a video on near-death experiences. So I was immediately captivated, and I ordered like 20 books on Amazon, all used books, and I began reading near-death experiences and also the physics and science of consciousness. And after that, it began 4 hours a day, then it was 6 hours a day, 8 hours a day. By the end of 4 months, it was literally 18 hours a day. I was not doing any of my work. I was not showering. I was not shaving. I was like a madman because when there were only like 5 books left, I would order 20 more. There were 5 books left. I ordered 20 more. Okay. And I was not well. My wife was saying I need to go to a psychiatrist because I'm not behaving normally. And so these 3 days, these 3 magical days, December 21st, 2012, December 22nd, 2012, and December 23rd, 2012, the very first 3 individuals I ever mentioned near-death experiences to, all of them told me of their near-death experiences. Okay. And so let me tell you about the first one. The first one was my daughter's pediatrician. I brought her to her because my daughter had a very low-grade fever for 2 days. She then tells me, we took a temperature, she doesn't have a fever. I checked her ears, her nose, and her throat. I don't see any signs of infection. Maybe it was just a virus and it already elapsed. So she didn't prescribe any antibiotics, and she said she can go home. I don't see anything. And so at that time, immediately after she said that, I told the doctor in a robotic voice, it was like a channeled voice that came out. And it says, excuse me, doctor, have you ever heard of the term near-death experiences? I've just read approximately 300 books on this topic, and many of them were written by medical doctors, such as yourself. And it's a phenomenon that you need to know about. And so as I was saying this, in my mind, I was like, what's going on here? Where did this voice come from? I couldn't even control it. I couldn't even stop it. And then I then knew that I might have had some mental, psychiatric problems. But the doctor, meanwhile, her eyes got real big. And I said, oh my God, now this woman thinks I'm a crazy madman, So I said, excuse me, doctor, I don't know why I said that. I apologize. And she said, there's no need to apologize. How did you know I had one? And then she goes on to tell me about her near-death experience. The next day, Saturday, was a dinner at my wife's church. It wasn't a religious event. It was just a social dinner for the people that attended the Spanish Mass for the married couples. And so a similar event occurred with this man named Max. And he is the emergency room, a person that takes x-rays and CAT scans and things of that sort in this hospital. And same thing occurred. A channel voice came out. I told him the same verbatim. And it was at that point that I said, I need to go to a psychiatrist because I have, split personality. I have another person inside of me. Okay. That never occurred again. It only happened those first 2 times. So anyway, the next day, I said, I need to tell this to my father. Okay. Because he was like the world's biggest atheist. He was very, very ill. He was bedridden. And so before he died, I wanted to tell him what happened on Friday and what happened on Saturday. So the next day on Sunday, I went to my parents' home, and my mother and I helped my father to get dressed, and we helped him to walk outside to the patio. And I told him what happened Friday, what happened Saturday. And then he goes, oh, same thing happened to me 16 years ago. And then he starts telling me that he had the quadruple heart bypass surgery. He floated out of his body in the surgery room, and then saw his body underneath, all the doctors and nurses. And then he said he got sucked up by a vacuum cleaner. He went through this long tunnel. He saw this light. He went into the light. And after the light dissipated, he saw his father, his mother, and his deceased brother in energy form. And then he then was presented to this energy being who he knew was God. He said it was God. And then he then tells me that time doesn't exist. And I said, what do you mean time doesn't exist? He says, because I was up there for 20 to 30 years. He said, God showed me all the good things I had done in my life and all the bad things. And he showed it to me from inside my body and the other body of the other person that I had affected. And so what he had actually, it's called the life review. And he experienced that with the duality of being inside his consciousness and the consciousness of the other individuals that he had affected. So he basically relived the major events of his life. And that's why I said it was 20 or 30 years. Anyway, I'm not going to tell you more about what my father said, but when I went home that night, I put down my windows and I was looking at the stars. This is Miami, a major city, but there were only a few stars outside, but still, for the first time in my life, I spoke to God. And also what I call my modern angels. And these are the intermediaries that had been working with me. They're all instruments of what I call God. And then I said, I want to thank you because over a 4-month period, you have totally transformed an atheist material rationalist into someone that doesn't have a belief. No, I don't have a belief. I have a knowingness that I am an eternal spiritual being. And for that gift that you gave me, I want to thank you profusely. And so, and then after that, I had no need to read a near-death experience book again. And this knowingness, I still have that knowingness inside of me, the spirituality, that without a question. So that's just a little side note of some of the experiences that happened after I saw that huge UFO. Okay. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about the organization I'm affiliated with, and it's our organization is trying to study what is consciousness, but we're doing it via cross-comparative research studies of major experiencers of the contact modalities. And if you see to the right, that's the front cover of our new book. New book is titled A Greater Reality, the New Paradigm of Consciousness, the Paranormal, and the Contact Modalities. And it's 4 volumes. And as you can see there, I purposely made 4 of these contact modalities much larger than the others. And I consider those the 4 major contact modalities: near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, UFOs, and people that see ghosts and spirits. Now, nous is a Greek word that means knowledge or wisdom. And on purpose, I put it in that order. And as you'll see, the other terms, the other concepts in there: channeling, energy healing, automatic writing, teleportation, clairvoyance, precognition, retrocognition, lucid dreams, telepathy, mediumship, human-initiated contact experiences, poltergeist, orbs, intuition, etc., etc. These are all different modalities that people are piercing the veil of our reality and having contact with perceived non-human intelligence. Okay. In the fall of 2013, I introduced the term the contact modalities when I published an article in the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Free Foundation website titled "The Quantum Hologram Theory of Consciousness and the Contact Modalities." I don't have time to relay an experience that occurred in May of 2013 because it's very expansive, but it basically involved an out-of-body experience while I was driving my car to go to work. And I was brought to another reality. And in this other reality, I was basically shown via me being inside a huge wheel all of the contact modalities, that they're all interrelated, that humans are studying them as separate and different phenomena, but in fact, it's all one phenomenon, and that consciousness is the glue that holds it all together. I got downloads of advanced physics, downloads about consciousness, downloads about our greater reality. We just don't have time to get into those. That would have to be a separate discussion. But anyway, let me move on. As I said earlier, these are some of the major contact modalities: UFO contact, near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, spirit and ghost communications, remote viewing, hallucinogenic contact, mediumship, channeling, and many, many others types of ways that humans are piercing the veil of our reality and having contact with perceived higher forms of intelligence. You could also use the term non-human intelligence, whatever term you prefer. This is just a conceptual rendering of the concept of the contact modalities. The Consciousness and Contact Research Institute has over 15 Ph.D. academics, 5 medical doctors, and 10 lay researchers. And I think that one of the individuals, Chet Swanson, is on this presentation today, and Dr. Raul Valverde, who introduced me to Vinesh, might be on this presentation as well. There's 3 co-directors of the organization. One is Dr. Rudy Shields, and he is an emeritus professor of astrophysics at Harvard University. Dr. Jeffrey Long is one of the leading researchers on near-death experiences. He's a medical doctor, oncologist, a cancer specialist, and he's written 3 books on near-death experiences. And he's one of the few researchers that has been maintaining a statistical database where people can take surveys about their own near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences. So he and I and Rudy are the 3 co-directors of the CCRI. Other members of our research committee is Dr. Gary Schwartz. He was a tenured professor at Harvard, Yale, and he's now at the University of Arizona, where he conducts studies of mediumship. And there's all scientific laboratories using lasers that the medium is asking the ghost or the spirit or that entity to interfere with the different lasers. And he's measuring that and doing a whole bunch of statistical research study via technology, science and technology. So that's Dr. Gary Schwartz. Dean Radin is the lead scientist at the Institute for Noetic Sciences, and that's the organization that Dr. Edgar Mitchell founded. And it's the leading organization that researches the psi phenomenon and consciousness. And Dean has written 3 books, scientific books, related to his academic scientific work on the psi phenomenon and consciousness. Dr. Bob Davis is a retired professor of neuroscience at the State University of New York, and he's also published several books on these phenomenon. Michael Grosso, retired professor of philosophy. He's written over 10 books on various aspects of the paranormal, brilliant mind. Stephen A. Schwartz is the father of remote viewing. He's written hundreds of articles on consciousness. Dr. John Klimo, emeritus professor of psychology. He's one of the few academics to be a tenured faculty member working primarily on the topics of the paranormal and consciousness. Jeffrey Mishloff received his Ph.D. from University of California, Berkeley. He's the only one to ever receive a Ph.D. in parapsychology. And after he got his Ph.D., Berkeley terminated the program of self-Ph.D. majors because they didn't want to be influenced with the quackery of parapsychology. But Jeffrey is one of the world's leading experts on consciousness and the parapsychology. And he has this radio show, and everyone ought to be interested in it. It's titled New Thinking Aloud. And he's interviewed hundreds of researchers that have been researching all aspects of consciousness. So you name the topic of consciousness, and Jeffrey has interviewed that person, including scholars of the Upanishads, Vedanta, Greek philosophy, Taoism, Buddhism, you name it. Dr. Massimo Teodorino is yet another professor of astrophysics at the University of Bologna in Italy. I'm not going to go through all the names there, but many of the individuals there are all research academics and scholars on consciousness and the contact modalities. And some of you might know Raul Valverde. Raul is a professor in Canada of information sciences and statistics. And I guess Raul can introduce himself if he's on the call. Glenn Ryan is a PhD in biochemistry at London University. Again, he's been writing about these topics for over 40 years. And many other PhD in academics. And this is just a very quick, Dr. Eric Olet is a professor at the military college, the academy there for the Army, I believe it was. And his focus is on the paranormal and consciousness. And he's a professor of sociology. And the other ones are major academics. Some of them are professors in medical schools. For example, Dr. Bruce Grayson, a professor at the medical school at the University of Virginia. Roland Griffiths, a professor at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. Dr. Jim Tucker, again, another professor. All of these are psychiatrists at the University of Virginia School of Medicine. We hypothesize that the contact modalities might be derived from one source and that it might be one phenomenon. And we believe that consciousness is what unifies the contact modalities, and that consciousness is primary and not our material reality. Materialism, the idea that matter is the only reality, and the belief system that the mind is nothing but the physical activity of the brain. We don't agree with that. Okay. Research on quantum physics, the psi phenomenon, near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, mediumship, hallucinogens, and now our free UFO experiencer research study supports the thesis that the mind can exist separate from the brain, and that consciousness is the key to understanding the contact modalities. This view that I'm expressing is called a post-materialist view of reality. Okay, and most of the people in ufology consider our work woo-woo science, but they're totally ignorant of the previous literature that I'd referenced. In addition, the majority of the researchers in our organization view that we are living in a greater reality, whether you could call it a multi-dimensional reality, a virtual reality, a quantum holographic reality. There's many ways of slicing the bread, but basically that we are living within a greater reality. And as I said before, consciousness is primary. Now you're going to be listening to an audio of three individuals. One is Dr. Gary Schwartz, who I introduced before, the professor at Harvard, Yale, and research committee member of CCRI, Dr. Raymond Moody, who is the person that invented the term near-death experiences, and Dr. Jeffrey Long, who I spoke about before, one of the main researchers on near-death experiences and also the co-director of the CCRI.
Consciousness is first. If it's primary, if it all starts with a one consciousness and everything else is then part of that one and evolves from that one, and we all have this, we're all part of the unified whole. We're all both one, we're all the one, and we're also a unique part of the one.
I think the primary reality is consciousness, and that physicality is projected by the consciousness to give continuity to the narrative aspect of life. That's what I think.
During their near-death experience that ensued, their consciousness left the operating room and went down to the cafeteria in the hospital, where their family was gathered having a meal, completely unaware of the crisis in the operating room. When he came back and checked out what he saw and heard, accurate down to the finest detail. There's absolutely no explanation possible that no skeptic could ever provide other than that is exactly what these persons described. It is proof of consciousness apart from the body.
Okay, so that was Dr. Gary Schwartz, Dr. Raymond Moody, and Dr. Jeffrey Long. And these are just short excerpts from our documentary, A Greater Reality. And I do have the actual video of it, but it's not showing up on my PowerPoint, so I apologize for that. But at least, Vinesh, did you hear at least the audio part of it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So we'll move with just the audio. Now, the next person, J. Allen Hynek, I'm going to skip over him, but basically he's the father of ufology. He was hired by US military intelligence to be the lead scientist for what was called Project Blue Book. And that was the US military trying to study UFOs, but in actuality, they hired him to debunk UFOs. And actually, he started debunking UFOs until he started learning more about it. And then he later on believed that, yes, UFOs are very, very real, but he still remained a materialist. And it wasn't until the end of his life, like 2 years before he died, that he then realized, after researching so many of these experiences with experiencers, individuals, that he then understood that the UFOs are a multidimensional and consciousness-based phenomenon. So let me just play one of his audios. This is shortly before he died.
My own philosophical feeling about the UFO phenomenon is that when all is said and done, it represents some form of intelligence. But whether that intelligence is from great distances away, or whether it is perhaps much closer to us in a parallel reality or in another dimension, or whether it is in some strange way a product of our own intelligence, our own psyche, I don't know. This is the research problem. That it seems to be programmed, that it seems to have an intelligence of its own, I think is unmistakable. If anyone who studies the subject just sees that. But we must not jump to the conclusion that because it has an intelligence of its own, it is necessarily visitors from outer space. It may be in some strange way connected with that intelligence, if that intelligence can in some way project itself down here. But, well, yeah, that's really all I have to say. That's it.
So this is a professor of astronomy at Northeastern University, one of the major academic research institutes in the United States, highly respected university. And he's the father of ufology. And towards the end of his life, you know, he was saying that, look, you know, I don't believe UFOs are, you know, little green men from a physical planet. I think it's they're consciously based experiences. The next person I want to put an audio on is Dr. Jacques Vallée. If any of you have ever seen the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, there was a Frenchman in that movie, and that was supposed to be the character of Jacques Vallée. And I call him the godfather of post-materialist ufology. Besides Dr. J. Allen Hynek, he's by far the most important researcher of this phenomena, which he's been studying since the early 1960s. And so after Allen Hynek began to discuss the consciousness aspects of this, Jacques Vallée later on in many of his books began introducing this concept that that what we're seeing is not a materialist phenomenon. It's a consciousness and multidimensional based phenomenon involving a manipulation of space-time. So basically, this man's theories were just totally out of sync with what ufology was presenting in their conferences. And he was right, he's correct. And most of the members of our organization also believe in the trend that Jacques Vallée was heading towards. So let me play Dr. Jacques Vallée.
I think that from my own point of view, I'm going to be very disappointed if UFOs turn out to be nothing more than visitors from another planet, because I think they could be something much more interesting.
Something from another dimension of space or time?
I think what the UFO phenomenon is teaching us is that we don't understand time and space. Mm-hmm. Here are objects, I think we have to call them objects, that are physical, that interact with the environment, that cause effects on the witnesses, on the psychology and the physiology of the witnesses, and leave traces on the ground, and yet are capable of, appear to be capable of manipulating time and space in ways that go beyond what our physics understands today.
Okay, Dr. Jacques Vallée, this extraordinary individual. He has a Ph.D. in information sciences, one of the pioneers of the early internet, also went to the US to study a Ph.D. in astronomy, and has been studying the whole UFO phenomenon for over 50 years. A brilliant man. And so his perspective is that this is not about materialism. It's something a little bit more complicated. George Knapp is a host of this radio show called Coast to Coast Radio. It literally has millions of audience members on a weekly basis, and he's one of the rotating hosts. And he's told me personally up front, he said, look, Ray, consciousness is primary. And this excerpt is a little bit long, okay? But what he basically is saying is that out of over 40 years of hosting this radio show on the paranormal and on consciousness, that he's come to that conclusion, very similar to what Jacques Vallée is saying, but for all the paranormal. He says it's all one phenomenon, okay? And it needs to be seen as one phenomenon. So let me skip that because that's too long. And let me go over John Alexander. John Alexander was wrote his Ph.D. dissertation on the afterlife and on near-death experiences. He was the second president of the International Association of Near-Death Studies. And he's also been the president several times of the International Association of Remote Viewers. And let me go exactly to what he's saying.
understand it. You now believe that if we're going to understand the UFO phenomenon, we have to look at it in this wider context, including interspecies communication, shamanism, higher states of consciousness, and so on.
Right. Remote viewing. I did a lot of work with near-death studies. I was once the president of the International Association for Near-Death Studies. And it is my premise that somehow all of these phenomena are connected. One of the problems in looking at it is we tend to stovepipe. And I think in doing that, you cut off a lot of the information that would be helpful in understanding a theoretical basis, which does not exist at this point.
By using the term stovepipe, I think you mean trying to see it as a single discipline rather than an interdisciplinary approach.
Very much so. And yeah, you look at near-death experience, poltergeist, remote viewing, UFOs, and they cut off access of the information in between. And I think that's a mistake.
Okay, so again, this is a man that was a colonel in the US military, and he headed up the program many, many years ago, non-lethal weapons, which is how can we use the mind as a weapon, okay? And remote viewing inside the military. So that was over 40 years ago, or 50 years ago when he retired. But since then, he became very, very interested in opening up the horizons of the various aspects of consciousness. And he's also a member, everyone that I'm mentioning here are all members of our research committee of the CCRI. Let me skip Dr. Dean Radin. He is the lead scientist for the Institute for Noetic Sciences, just because it just takes too long, some of these presentations. Okay, so because all of these individuals believe that somehow all of the paranormal is interrelated, what we're calling the contact modalities. There was no data on the UFO contact phenomena. There was lots of data, academic data on near-death experiences, on out-of-body experiences, and now with hallucinogenic research, they have like 5 major universities all around the world that are acquiring data on hallucinogens. But when it came to the UFO phenomenon, there was nada, zippo. So the previous organization, the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Free Foundation, undertook the world's first comprehensive multi-language statistical academic research study on the UAP-related contact experiences. And it took 5 years to develop between 2013 and 2018. And in 2018, we published this 820-page book titled Beyond UFOs, The Science of Consciousness and Contact with Non-Human Intelligence. And as I said, send me an email to info@experiencer.org, and I will send more than half of that book to you. In order to participate in our survey, you need to, first of all, have seen a UFO and have had some type of contact with a perceived non-human intelligence. And much of our data totally contradicts what is circulating in materialist ufology. Why? Because the basic statistical data was never collected. And again, please write this down, info@experiencer.org, and I will send you information over 450 pages from our first book, and I will send you information about our second book, okay? info@experiencer.org. The 4 co-founders of the Free Foundation were Dr. Edgar Mitchell, the 6th man to walk on the moon, and the father of the Institute for Noetic Sciences. Edgar was studying the topic of consciousness since the 1960s. And in 1974, he published a very large book titled, I think it was Psychic Research. I have the book here, and I read it in its entirety, but no, Psychic Exploration. And so, so he's always been interested in all of these topics that I just mentioned. He passed away in 2016. Rudy Shields, who I mentioned before, the Emeritus Professor of Astrophysics at Harvard University. Mary Rodwell, who was a researcher of UFO contact experiencers, and she's based out of Australia, and myself. So we were the four co-founders, but there were numerous other PhD academics associated with the Free Research Committee. And these were the non-academic researchers as well. These are all people that worked and studied UFO contact experiencers for more than 30 years, all of these people here. So what we did is we bridged together the scientists, the academics, with the people that had the boots on the ground, the people that were actually studying the researchers. Okay, the survey was a huge undertaking. It was 600 quantitative questions. It had 70 open-ended written responses. Those are the qualitative survey instrument. And for 3 years, we bombarded YouTube, posting on over 500 Facebook sites, monthly mailings to over 8,000 email addresses, internet postings, over 200 radio interviews to publicize our surveys. In the survey, we informed the participants to base their responses only upon conscious explicit memory and not memory from hypnotic regressions, from lucid dreams, channeling, etc. We conducted the survey in English, Spanish, French, German, Slovak, and very soon in Chinese. The data that I'm going to be presenting now is the English language survey data. Okay, we received over 4,145 responses from over 125 countries. And for the phase 3, which is the written responses, it was almost 1,500 people. And we've received more than 10,000 pages of written responses to the phase 3 questions. There were 4 major findings, okay? First of all, that these experiences were overwhelmingly positive experiences. Number 2, that these experiences resulted in a positive transformation of the experiencer. Number 3, these experiences were primarily paranormal and not physical experiences. Number 4, these experiences involved a manipulation of space-time, that these experiences might be interdimensional or multidimensional in nature. First of all, we wanted to find out whether these experiences were positive, negative, or neutral. So we asked that question in more than 40 different ways, 40 different questions, because how you phrase a question, you'll get a different response. So what follows are just a few of these questions. We asked a straightforward question. How would you describe your experiences? Were they positive, negative, or neutral? Well, negative was only 5%. Neutral was 29%, and positive was 66%. So as you can see, the negative aspect of the phenomenon was only 5%. We asked individuals to describe the physical beings that they encountered. There were 12 categories, but I only list the top 7 here. And as you can see, the number 1 type of being that people encountered were the energy beings. And that was 55%. The human-looking being was at 52%, where the short grays, these are these little beings, 3 to 4 feet tall with the huge head and the wraparound eyes, that was at 51%. The ghosts and the spirits was at 47%. The tall grays, 33%, the reptilian-looking beings at 25%, and the insectoid being at 21%. And as you can see, this is not 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people. These were, you know, hundreds of people. And in the case of several of these categories, it was more than 1,000 people. And in terms of the negativity, as you can see, it's quite small. For example, the short grays, if you go to the internet and start reading all the BS that's on the internet, you would think that all these beings are horrible beings, you know? But yet only 11% stated that it was a negative experience. And the vast majority of these experiences that said it was negative was mainly because of the physicality, what the being looked like, okay? Another category said, if we could stop your contact experiences, would you? Well, 84% no, don't make it stop. Keep it coming. Keep these experiences coming. I'm loving it. Keep it coming. Do you believe that ET or non-human intelligence are bad, malevolent, or evil? Look at that. 91% said no. Now, the next question is, the contact experience resulted in a positive transformation of the experiencer. Okay. We took close to 70 questions from this book that was published in 1992. It's titled The Omega Project by Dr. Kenneth Ring, who was a professor at the University of Connecticut. And he was one of the pioneers of near-death experience research. And what he did in this book, he compared 85 people that had UFO abduction experiences with 85 people that had near-death experiences. And what we did is, he concluded in one of the areas that he focused on was, how did these people change? And what he said was that basically 75 to 85% of these individuals, depending on the question that was asked, said that they had a positive transformation on that specific topic. And I'm going to be going over that in a couple of minutes. And that was from his book, The Omega Project. So we asked this question, how did ET contact change your life? Well, 51% said it was highly positive effect in changing their life. 22% said it was a slightly positive effect. So right there you have 73% said it was positive effect in changing their lives for the better. 17 said it was neutral. Highly negative was only 4%. That's it. Now let's go over some of these questions that we asked. As you can see here in yellow are the increased, where that particular experience increased. So the question is, since I first became interested in my UFO experience, or since I had my first UFO experience, my desire to help others, my compassion for others, my appreciation of the ordinary things of life, my sensitivity to the sufferings of others, my concern with spiritual matters, my desire to achieve a higher consciousness, all increased, and some of them dramatically. My appreciation of nature, my spiritual feelings, my concern with the welfare of planet Earth, my understanding of what life is all about, my personal sense of purpose in life, my concern with ecological matters. So again, all of these increased substantially, okay? In terms of strongly decreased, as you can see, it's almost nothing, less than 1%. Decreased somewhat, again, maybe 1 to 2%. Okay, so these are people that had a major transformation, total complete. Let's say, for example, spiritual feelings. People became more spiritual. Look at that. 83% said that it increased their sense of spirituality, their concern of protecting the planet, of nature, appreciating nature. Look at that. It's like 84%. Okay, purpose in life. 78%, still huge numbers. Now let's look at what decreased. What decreased? What do you think decreased? Well, let's take a look at it. My concern with material things. All of a sudden, they didn't care about every year buying a new Mercedes-Benz. The old Honda Accord that's 20 years old, if it's still working, that'll suffice. My interest in organized religion. All of a sudden, like my wife, she doesn't have a need to go to Mass every Sunday, okay? She doesn't have a need every Thursday to go to group prayer meetings, okay? So, but she still occasionally goes. So while it's decreased, most people still maintain that religious upbringing because it was part of their culture, part of their upbringing. My competitive tendencies, all of a sudden, they didn't care about attacking the co-employee because they wanted the promotion, okay? No, the competitive tendencies have significantly decreased. Very important, very, very important. My fear of death. Look at this, 83% of these individuals no longer fear death. Isn't that overwhelming? Okay. My desire to become well known, to They become famous, okay? So my whole point now is, what would happen to humanity if the entire humanity had these experiences? People became more spiritual, became more more kind and compassionate and loving others. They became more spiritual. They appreciate ordinary things of life. They appreciate nature. They become more ecological. They now have a purpose in life, okay? They no longer fear death. They no longer are competitive. They're not material. What would happen if the rest of humanity changed this way? We would have a totally different world, okay? We wouldn't have the massive starvation that takes place, the economic exploitation. In the previous century, we had over 200 million people that were killed by wars. Okay, you think we would have all these wars of self-destruction if all of the leaders of the world, all of the politicians underwent this? You know, we might still have it, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere near what we have now. So from my perspective, let these UFO contact experiences occur to everybody in the world. Now, another major finding is that these experiences are primarily paranormal in nature and not physical contact experiences. So let me describe that. 80% of these individuals have had out-of-body experiences. 37% have had near-death experiences. 50% had a medical healing on themselves or a family member. 78% have received telepathic communications. 50% were brought to a matrix reality, like I was brought in the middle while I was driving my car in the middle of a traffic jam. 66% have had past life memories. 76% have seen a perceived ghost or a spirit. 46% have received glimpses or received information about the spirit world. 67% have physically seen a small colored orb. 25% have had objects mysteriously appear and disappear right in front of them. Those are called apports. 61% have had objects fallen or suddenly move around you without any reasonable explanation. 74% can see or feel energy or auras around people. Okay. Let's look at what these individuals, the information that these experiencers received from non-human intelligence. Did you receive any type of communication? Yes, 80% did receive communication from a non-human intelligence. Was the communication in your native language? 75%. And that did not matter what language it was in. If you took the Spanish language survey and Spanish was your primary language, you got that message in Spanish. If French was your primary language, you got that message in French, et cetera, et cetera. Did impart reassuring messages to you? 61% said yes. Did it provide you a spiritual message? 54%. Did it give you a message of love or oneness? 54%. Did it express to you concern about humanity's behavior? Mainly that we're destroying the planet and we're killing each other. We're not loving. 45%, yes, they told me about humanity's behavior. Did it give
we
you
have another 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. So
we need some time for question and answers.
Okay. Let's go over in terms of spirituality. Okay. 97% of these individuals believe that non-human intelligence can travel to other dimensions. 91% believe that there's some sort of grand plan in motion. 89% believe that there is a connection between non-human intelligence and the paranormal. 83% believe that there is a connection between non-human intelligence and the spirit world. Okay. People were told about reincarnation. They believe that they have an agreement with non-human intelligence. And let me skip some of these. So, summary. Most of our data contradicts what is circulating in mainstream ufology. Why? Because no one has ever did this study before. The UFO contact phenomenon is highly positive and highly transformative for the positive in the long term. The UFO contact phenomenon is primarily a paranormal, multidimensional phenomenon involving a manipulation of space-time, and that all of the contact modalities should be viewed as one phenomenon instead of separate phenomenon. And in terms of spirituality, as I said before, just like most of the people that return from a near-death experience, they're told that the most important concept that you need to learn is to learn how to love. Okay, you talk to any researcher of near-death experiences, they'll tell you that the number one information that relayed to them during their NDE is that humanity needs to learn how to love, and that you as an individual needs to learn how to love each other. Okay, the OBE literature tells you the same thing. Okay, most of the people that undertake major astral traveling, they reveal the same messages of love and spirituality. And as I just demonstrated, the free UFO experiential research study reveals the same thing regarding love and spirituality. Unfortunately, materialists will never understand the non-religious consciousness aspects of love and spirituality. And so let me skip a little bit. There's certain commonalities between the contact modalities. Very quickly, telepathic communication and all of the contact modalities involves communication in your native language. The out-of-body experience is very common between NDEs and UFO contact experiences. After many people that have had NDEs, they also begin to see ghosts and spirits. And as you saw in the UFO contact experiencers, 75%, 3 out of 4 people have seen ghosts and spirits. Both of these phenomena involve medical healings. The aspects of reincarnation are common. People are seeing visions of the future, visions of the past, total personality transformation. People are brought to a matrix reality in both the NDE and the UFO phenomenon. Precognition is involved, paranormal experiences, spiritual messages. It also implies that consciousness is non-local, manipulation of space-time, and that we might be living in a multi-dimensional reality. So let me skip over that, some of these parts here. As I said, our new book, it's going to have 4 volumes. We hope to put all of the 4 volumes in one Kindle version. And it's going to be over 2,000 pages. Tons of information. And so volumes 1 and 2 are going to be our theoretical chapters, written by PhDs and medical doctors on the topic of consciousness and the contact modalities. And volumes 3 and 4 are chapters written by experiencers of their own experiences. And so our book is going to be published on December 1st. And again, that's the front cover of our book, so you can take a look at it again. And this is the email, info@experiencer.org. Send me an email and I will send you half of our first book, and also information about our second book. So at this point, let me stop the sharing, and I'm back to the main screen again.
So we would like to thank Ray for this wonderful talk. I have never heard a person having more experiences and more knowledge of these extraordinary phenomena. 2 years back, we invited Dr. Moody for a whole day seminar. So I think we need more time with Mr. Rey Hernandez. And this talk was very interesting, very informative. So now we will have questions. So please raise your hands. And also I would like, before that, I would like to thank all the participants. And our next event will be in 3 weeks on October 3rd. And the title is Meditation and Elevation of Consciousness by Jeff Chiara. And I will send more details. So now my first question to Ray is, how do we increase our consciousness? Or how do we get in touch with these UFOs?
Okay, let me address that question. what we discovered in our research study is that most of these experiences from these individuals, they were not pre-planned. These were not orchestrated events that they orchestrated. For example, like a near-death experience, the vast majority of these experiences are resulting out of illnesses or automobile accidents, heart attacks, and things of that sort. The UFO contact phenomena, the vast majority of these experiences were not experiences that were pre-planned. However, there is an exception, and this can be considered something that people can do, okay? And I'll go over some other examples as well, in addition to the UFO aspect of it. But there's something, if you go to the internet and you type in CE5, okay? I don't like that term because of the man that coined that term is not a righteous man. But I prefer the term HICE, human initiated contact experiences. But now individuals all over the world are doing this. And it all started in the 1970s with this man named Sixto Paz, who initiated this. And then over the many years now, you literally have hundreds of organizations all around the world that are promoting what I'm about to tell you. And that is that you get together as a group, okay, as a small group, and then you meditate out in usually a national park or a forest or a desert. It's not done in a city, okay, it's outside. And there you basically project goodwill, you project love, you protect affinity with source, and you request contact. Most of the people that are successful, the groups that are successful, are people that already have had these contact experiences. And those are called, in the parlance of that genre, antennas, okay? And so if you stick with this group doing this for several months, you will see objects in the sky, which people are defining as UFOs. Most of these are orbs in the sky that are projecting themselves, like this huge orb that's going to the right, and all of a sudden the person is with their mind says, okay, everybody, I'm telling it to go to the left, and all of a sudden it's going to the left, okay? So you know that this is not a satellite, it's not an airplane. And the easiest way to do this is there's an organization called that's not in it for the money, okay? There's some people that they charge you thousands of dollars to go out to these events in the desert, you know? And but there's a group called ET Let's Talk, ET Let's Talk. And it's a group where you sign up on their website, you put your email and the geographic proximity of where you live. Let's say, for example, if it's Quebec, okay, there's a group established in Quebec. So once a month they go out, weather permitting, and they do these types of contact experiences. If you live in Toronto, there's another group in Toronto where you can hook up and you can communicate with other people in your area. And usually it's the person that leads this is someone that has done this for quite a while. So it's called ET Let's Talk, and that's how you could promote this. Other ways that individuals are promoting, I would coin it in different ways. One is promoting altered states of consciousness, other ways of piercing your reality and having communication with source or non-human intelligence. There's separate, many different things. One thing that has been done actually since the ancient Sanskrit times is now commonly called holotropic breathing, which is deep breathing exercises. And that was known since I forgot what text it was in the ancient Hindu text, whether it was in the Upanishads or something else, but I forgot what it was. But this professor in the 1970s, his name is Stanislav Grof. He's a professor that had been promoting how do we stimulate altered states of consciousness. And you can look him up, Stanislav Grof, G-R-O-F. And he was one of the individuals that started what is called parapsychology or transpersonal psychology. And so he found out about this ancient technique from Hindu philosophy school of thought, and it's called holotrophic breathing. And I believe that at least one of the individuals here that's in our group call has gone to a location in Canada to engage in holotrophic breathing, and that's where his first contact experience occurred. He basically heard a voice talking to him, communicating with him. And so that is an established way known to hundreds of people that have utilized this technique. And so another thing that people do, which is readily available, is a lot of people take hallucinogens. But there's problems with that because these hallucinogens, they're told by the people that work with these medicines, is that these are not drugs. You know, these are just experiences for altered states of consciousness, which are utilized to awaken you or to guide you out of bad habits like drug addiction, psychological depression, and things of that sort. And now most major universities that are studying them have demonstrated that. Their research findings that people that were drug addicted, they've taken this medicine several times and all of a sudden, boom, that's it. There's no need for the drug. People with advanced mental illnesses such as depression. And so that whole genre of using hallucinogenic journeys, DMT, which is the chemical in ayahuasca, psilocybin, which is the ingredient in magic mushrooms. So those are all have been scientifically studied. And in many states in the United States, it's illegal. Most of the United States, I would say. But in some countries, it's now legal. It's now legal, but it's under structured supervision, the administration of it. Now, the shamans, the traditional historic shamans in many different cultures have utilized this, but they've done it as part of their own personal ceremony as a shaman to get knowledge for their tribe, their group, to heal people. They've used it in terms of their own healing mechanisms. But again, I'm not endorsing that, but I'm just saying that's what a lot of people are doing. And 50% of the people that have utilized DMT or psilocybin, the studies have shown that 50% are having contact experiences with non-human intelligences. So other ways that people are doing is through long-term meditation. And again, doesn't happen to everybody, okay? But a lot of experienced meditators, once they've able to handle this, to get a good grasp of it, many of them pop out of their bodies and they have out-of-body experiences, or they get downloads of information and even downloads of communication, and that in turn initiates interaction with an intelligence that for many individuals engages a lifetime. Okay, many people that have been blessed with having out-of-body experiences, and most people initially is very, very frightening. Okay, but many individuals have learned to harness the out-of-body experience, that once they feel that sensation in their body that it's about to happen, and you know there are clear sensations of the beginnings that OBE is going to start. Some of these individuals have learned over time to be able to control it, and some of them are able to induce it at will. Okay, and I won't go into those details, but there's this very, very famous man, Tom Campbell, who was having OBE experiences as a child, and he was one of the test subjects for Robert Monroe, which eventually became the Monroe Institute, which is an organization that promotes out-of-body experiences through binary hearing sensory auditory stimulus. And so you could look up the Monroe Institute. They have a program called HemiSync that you could research about it, and that's how to promote out-of-body experiences. And Tom Campbell is a Ph.D. physicist, and he's also wrote a chapter for our book on the virtual reality hypothesis, because he's saying that when he goes out of body, he goes into like a virtual reality, a greater reality. And he's been doing experiments in that virtual reality, physics-based experiments. But that's another way, okay, of learning how to promote out-of-body experiences. So these are just some of the ways in terms of meditation, holotrophic breathing, promoting out-of-body experiences, the UFO, human-initiated contact experiences. Other people have tried channeling, okay, where there is a medium, okay, and they've utilized that medium to try to communicate with a deceased relative, usually in most cases. And then a lot of these people have also done something called the silver mind learning method. And from that, they learned how to do what is called automatic writing. And these are all advanced meditative techniques, the silver mind method. As a matter of fact, that man that started the calling down the UFOs with the CE5 stuff, Sixto Paz, and another friend of mine back in the early 70s, they took the silver method, and then they learned how to do automatic writing. And then all of a sudden, they got all these messages coming in, and they started writing them down. And the more they worked at it, the more refined the messages. And the messages were in those two individuals, like, go to the desert next Saturday at 11 in the evening, and we will appear to you. Okay. So all of a sudden, they went out there, and boom, there was a huge UFO. Then they started inviting their family members. Okay, I got another message to come out, in 2 weeks at 12 o'clock at night. Okay, so they would go out with their family members. Boom, the whole family. Then it was a neighborhood, the entire neighborhood. So automatic writing. Okay, you can look up the silver learning method, silver mind learning method. I forgot the formal name of it. So yes, there are many forms that you could try to initiate contact and get into the realm of consciousness. And again, in summary, these are topics that we're just beginning to understand. I think that the ancient traditions, mystical traditions, like the whole Vedanta tradition, they had a much better grasp of these things than we certainly do in modern times. So yes,
we will take questions from the audience now. Okay, you can raise your hand or unmute yourself and ask a question. Everybody is.
Yes, I have a question, Ray.
Yeah.
There is in our human lives, there's there are things that we call normal. I mean, that happen to all of us every day. That's the crossing of the street, when the light turns green, we go, and many normal things constitute everyday occurrences within our lives, our everyday lives.
Please keep your question short, because we are running out of the time.
Certainly.
So ask your question.
Certainly. The question I want to say, Ray, is that all of a sudden we have this interface, if you like, of stuff that is not normal, that is supra-normal. And could it be, because listening to Raymond Moody, and like yourself, Raymond Moody alluded to it, could it be that, if all of our manifestations, our inner manifestations, constituting the experiences of our lives, otherwise the unmaterial informing the material, could also UFOs be part of that extension, our experience of UFOs?
Yes, I believe so. I believe UFOs are not material. that these are influences from the universal mind to interact with us. In terms of the thesis or hypothesis of this, well, we've got Carl Jung's, theory of the archetypes and the collective unconscious, thesis. You've got other thesis of, as I said before, Dr. Tom Campbell, in terms of the virtual reality hypothesis. There's numerous hypotheses that are out there. I believe that we're still trying to grasp Bernardo Castro, another noted philosopher and consciousness scholar, has his own very unique reasoning for what's going on. So I believe that there's kernels of truth in all of the members that I mentioned, but it's still, I think beyond the grasp of humanity. But what I do believe in most of the members of our organization is that we are living within a greater reality, that most of these paranormal experiences that we're referring to are not straight physicalist experiences, that you see a ghost in front of you, okay, that you perceive it as a physical ghost. But the way I view it, and many of the others in our group, is that these are projections of, let's say, for lack of a better term, from God, the universal mind, to interact with us, to stimulate us as within our own personal journey. That's a very simplistic way of putting it, Peter.
Rey, if everything is illusion, that physical is illusion also. So that is also a projection of our consciousness.
Correct. That's the thesis of Bernard Castro, that absolutely everything is an illusion. And again, these are very complicated metaphysical concepts that philosophy has been studying from the dawn of mankind, in terms of what degree, what level, what hierarchy. And so, but what I personally believe, at least it's based upon talking to all of these academics, and these are people that have been studying, this phenomenon for all of their lives at an academic level, is that we just don't have definitive explanations for what's going on. But what they believe is this whole concept that our reality is an illusion. Like we're living our own reality for ourselves within our own little cocoons. We're interacting with other people within their own little cocoons, but that the greater reality of who we really are is, once we cross over, after we die, our consciousness or soul or spirit then reverts back to source. But in terms of the mechanics of how it works, and that's the real reality. That's the real, physicality of it all, if you might want to say. But so everything that we live here, we have to take it with a grain of salt. We have pain. We feel pain. We're hungry. People lose their eyesight. They can't see anymore. So yes, there's a physicality to it. Okay, but we can get into a quantum physicist perspective of it. That might explain that everything is illusion. But we're not going to go there.
Yeah, Rey, let's take some more questions. Somebody else? Yes, Francois.
Yes, hello, everybody. First, fantastic presentation with percentages on different questions. I'm very happy to have been able to see all this. My question is, I think we're living in a, well, I want to know if it's your opinion. We're living in one of the most interesting time on planet Earth in terms of consciousness development and raising of consciousness, and I want to know if it's your opinion. And I really think it's a fantastic time to be here on Earth. Thank you very much.
Yes, Francois. The very beginning of my opening chapter discusses that that we're in a period of human awakening, and my principal argument for that is that 3 out of the 4 major contact modalities, which is near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, and the UFO contact phenomenon, The fourth is ghosts and spirits. That's been talked about since the dawn of mankind, okay? But at least the other three major contact modalities, they were all introduced to humanity at a global scale in multiple languages within 5 years of each other, okay? Let's talk about the UFO aspect of it, okay? That was introduced on a global scale in multiple languages with Star Trek, the TV series, that was syndicated in 1970. So then all of a sudden, Star Trek got translated in multiple languages and put all around the world on TV. So now everybody knew about ETs, about travelers from other planets, other dimensions, and other, you know, this whole aspect of the UFO aspect of topics. Near-death experiences, that was coined by Raymond Moody in 1975 with the publication of his book, Life After Life. And now it's a common household term. Everybody knows about NDEs all over the world, you know. Same thing with UFOs, okay? With out-of-body experiences, okay? When was that developed? The term was developed in the early 70s by Robert Monroe's books, okay? Again, these are all New York Times international bestsellers, just like Raymond Moody's books. So that's been translated into all languages around the world. And most people now, anecdotally, they heard, oh, my aunt, she went out of her body, right? But now they've got a term of it because it's been circulating all around the world, okay? And mind you, this is before the internet, because the internet got started in 1989, where you're able to purchase a subscription to the internet. 1989, that's it, you know? So this is before 1989, and it was a 5-year period, 1970 and 1975. Now, the question I ask for everybody here, the question I pose is, was that a coincidence? Or was that a pre-planned, orchestrated event? My argument is that this is not a coincidence. How could 3 of the major contact modalities within 5 years of each other be introduced to humanity, okay? So, and the reason why I believe that it was orchestrated for humanity at this time is because we have reached a crucial stage. We're at a crossing now of self-destruction, okay? One is the ecological self-destruction that's taking place, okay? And I don't need to describe to anybody, if anyone listens to the news, you know that we're heading towards this ecological catastrophe. The rising sea waters is going to be putting all of the coastal zones underwater. That's going to have massive migrations, massive starvation, massive upheavals. It's going to lead to wars, you know, that sort of thing. And if it leads to tensions among wars and countries and things like that, our nuclear arsenal, okay? We've got the capability to totally destroy this whole planet thousands of times over and over again. And all you need is some crazy madman, you know, to be able to utilize this. The Taliban just took over, right? And the Taliban culture, basically the Pakistani base, you know, all they need to do is for a lot of people within Pakistan to take over the ruling elites there, okay? And what would happen if all of a sudden you had such a group that was able to control nuclear weapons, you know, North Korea, et cetera, et cetera. So the humanity is really at the verge of self-destruction. So I think it's these experiences, these our contact modalities are now at a global scale known to all of humanity because it serves to awaken us. I went over all of those statistics, all of that data. That's not just with near-death experiences. UFO contact experiences engage a tremendous transformation, OBE experiences. But the problem is that it's only happening to a few select people at a time. It's not happening to everyone in this conference call here, you know? Maybe a few people here have had these experiences. And I know they've been totally transformed by it. I know that Linda was nodding her head, okay? I'm sure she's totally transformed by what I discussed in these presentations.
Yes, and why is it that not everyone is having these experiences if this is going to change the world? Why are we being funneled, if you will? Why is it not more widespread?
I ask that question continuously, and I get that question continuously. I don't have an answer. You know, to me, it's let it happen all over the world because you saw the consequences of these people being changed. They're totally different people. Very benevolent, very kind, very caring, spiritual, protecting our planet, et cetera, et cetera. So again, these are questions that Vinesh asked earlier, and I don't think we have reasonable explanations for them at this time.
Because it is crucial. I mean, let's face it, the damage, we're at a crucial stage, like you said.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why the hold up?
And Ray, I'm very sad that you said I will get answers only after dying. I want answers when I'm living, not after dying.
Let me sort of read you something that I just said very, very quickly. And it relates to the intelligence that I was interacting. Let me see where goodness, I sort of misplaced it, I think, here. Anyway, it's about exactly what we're talking about, that it appears that, you know, only when we die is when we'll be getting answers to these things, but at least it's a journey that many of us are having. You know, we are on this this path of becoming spiritually informed of the nature of our reality. And so it's the quest. I think it's the quest is the important part, that we're undertaking this. I mean, imagine me before these experiences started. Here I was, a tax attorney, doing the most boring work in the world, waiting for 3 years more until I retire. When I died, I'm going to be buried, and that's it, you know? So I was a totally lost soul, you know? Now my vision, my worldview is totally different. You know, I still have my faults and my problems. I still get mad, you know? That's a major problem. I still fight with my wife, you know, like Raymond Moody said that a day does not go by where he feels like choking somebody, you know. So but yet it is the man that said, you know, near-death experiences said that we need to learn how to love each other, you know. But these are human emotions, human feelings, but it's a process.
Ray, Dr. Moody did not have a near-death experience.
No, not that I know of. No.
Yeah.
No, but okay. He on my interview with him, and also on many other interviews, he said, you know, a day doesn't go by where he wants to choke somebody. So what he was alluding to was the contradictions, you know, of how he knows how we're supposed to behave, but in his mind, in the material reality, these emotions come out, you know. So
I think if we see the brain like a rock, maybe the more we get in the truth or the reality or the spiritual reality, the more the brain, the more we can reach the spiritual level and access to higher reality, you know, because in the material we are like a rock.
Yeah, I've used an analogy somewhat similar to that. And what I said was that once you've had one of these experiences, all of a sudden your brain becomes porous. Before, the brain is like concrete, like all this information, the zeros and the ones, the binary code, the information of our reality does not go in here, okay? But once you've had these experiences, all of a sudden it opens up other experiences. So it's like now our brain becomes porous. It's got holes in it. So all the zeros and ones are coming in now, you know, from our multi-dimensional reality, and we're having these experiences. So that's sort of like how I like to view these experiences, because what we learned was that for many of these people, for example, there's many people that their experiences started with a near-death experience. All of a sudden, after the near-death experience, they begin to see ghosts and spirits. They begin to pop out of their body, have out-of-body experiences. Dr. Yvonne Kaysen, I don't know if some of you might have heard her. She's had these remarkable experiences, and she now formed an organization called Spiritually Transformative Experiences. She coined that term, but she has a consciousness organization focusing on spiritually transformative experiences. We have a medical doctor, another medical doctor, that a chapter is going to be in our book, and she's had everything in the kitchen sink, okay? And so many other people. It starts off with one experience, and then all of a sudden it triggers others. So again, in terms of how it works, how it gets developed, we just don't understand that. But at least we need to ask these questions, as Vinesh says.
Any other question?
I have a question. Do you think that Nobel Prize should be given to this branch too, like near-death experience, out-of-body experience, consciousness development? And if yes, then for this year, to whom will you select?
Okay, a very good question. Yes, I believe that what it is that the Nobel Prize.
Yeah, as Nobel Prize is on every subject.
Yeah,
but is a subject, but there is nothing.
It's Nobel Prizes on materialist subjects, you know,
Okay.
physics, chemistry, things of that sort. They don't give out Nobel Prizes for consciousness studies or for philosophy or things of that sort. But I mean, there's people that are deceased and people that are alive. What I would do is I would give this award to Dr. Edgar Mitchell. Because Dr. Edgar Mitchell, I would give it a how's it called, posthumous, you know, someone dies here, to him, because he studied this Institute of Noetic Sciences. He been interested in this research for over 40-50 years, and he's been researching not just the consciousness aspect of it, but the UFO aspect of it, the near-death experience aspect of it, all of the contact modalities. Now, there's other people that are really are on the internet all the time talking about consciousness and the fundamentalism of like Bernard Kastrup and things of that sort. But there's other people like Jeffrey Mishloff, who you heard, and you might have seen him, the man with the bald head. He's been having these radio shows for 50 years promoting interviews of people that are studying consciousness. And so these are educational tools, educational instruments. But what you just mentioned, Mira, right, Mira?
Yeah.
What you just mentioned really is a fundamental question. I don't think, you know, these topics that the Nobel Prize give their awards to, these are not fundamental questions. I think if you're talking about the questions that Vinesh addressed earlier, these are fundamental questions of humanity. Okay, so I certainly endorse that, promote that, because I think it goes back to the very root of who we are.
Yeah,
I think to answer Mira's question, Mr. Nobel, he was very evil kind of person, because he invented TNT and so on. Yeah. We need somebody who is very spiritual and so on, become very rich. Then the Nobel Prize can be given.
They say that we use around 3% of our brain and some more. And if we add 10% of consciousness in the brain, it will be no war.
Yeah, sure. Linda.
Is there a common trait between those who do have these experiences? Is there something that links people in something in particular? Have you found that in your research?
Well, I think we went over this in the presentation. One was the common link is how these people change. Their worldview is totally different from everyone else.
But what links them to begin with? What is it that makes, you know, why do certain people have these experiences? Is there something?
Well, some people, some of the researchers have explored the topic of trauma, childhood trauma. Okay, now that is an indicator for many of these people, but I don't think it's the sole explanation for it, because many of the people that we researched did not have any trauma. Like in my case, I don't recall, you know, major childhood trauma. I had a very pleasant childhood. My father was very strict with me, you know, and at that time when I was young, I did not like his strictness, you know, but some of the researchers focused initially on trauma.
Yes. And I had this very deep feeling that certain people who have depression or some kind of a psychotic break and different phenomena, if you will, or things that happen to them, do seem to have this breakthrough.
There's that relationship between individuals that have had all aspects of the appropriate psychotic term, mental health issues, for lack of a more appropriate terminology.
They call it mental health issues, but I believe that it's an opening.
Well, we have an article that Dr. John Klimo wrote for our book. And the article is basically how the fields of psychology and psychiatry need to change to accommodate the experiencers of the contact modalities, because many of these individuals, they're not psychotic, they're just having these experiences. But yet it's associated with some traditional psychotic episodes, people that are Asperger's. How many people I know that have had Asperger's have had contact? A lot of folks. Some of them are major contact experiencers, okay?
It reminds me of the proverbial crack that is letting in the light.
Yeah. These are, glimpses that we're having of possibilities. But again, these studies are not funded, okay? If anyone takes these studies, like Dr. Kenneth Ring, for example, that did that study, he did that as a professor at the University of Connecticut with no funding, okay? But yet, many of these major researchers in these laboratories, these chemical laboratories and biology laboratories, they're receiving huge funding from...
there is a commercial aspect. Yeah, there is a commercial profit.
Correct, the commercial aspects of it. If you're developing a new pharmaceutical, a new toxic, mind-altering, medication for depression, you're going to get millions of dollars from a pharmaceutical, and then they're going to want that patent for 20 years. So there's tons of funding, but not for what Mira had talked about. And what you had alluded to, Linda, is to trying to get at some of the basic questions. There's a lot of researchers that are doing it, but myself, I'm a full-time tax attorney with the Internal Revenue Service, okay? I have a day job, I have family obligations, I have many other obligations. And even for me to write this chapter, I've only, my goal was to publish the 4 books by October 1st, but I've only worked on my opening chapter for 5 evenings, so, but yet some other people.
Problem,
yeah. So it's you need funding for these things in order to do it. And as Vinesh said, we need to pray for a very, very rich person to fund the new Nobel Prize in new research.
Now, Dr. Rahul joined us late. Rahul, you want to add something? Rahul, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, can you add some things? You would like to say something for next 2 minutes?
All I can say is that I know Ray for a long time, and I work with him. And this issue of the new reality is something that is an ongoing issue. We're discovering it's a 9-opener. At least for me, it has been a 9-opener. And it has changed my way to see life, so I thank him for the opportunity to open the door for me to understand all his research. But it's a new beginning for something new, believe me, something that at least it has changed me. So that's all I can say.
Thanks, Rahul. Let me tell you one thing, that after with Ray, we have talked about holding a contest where my foundation will give prizes for $20,000 for the people who will come up with the best techniques for raising consciousness.
All right, so I'm all in.
Yeah,
For sure.
so we have talked about Ray and me, and we need to organize that over coming several months.
All right, so I'm in. Okay.
Okay.
Hey, Raul, how are you, sir?
I am.
Hi, how are you doing, my friend? You
Hanging
look
in,
good
brother.
there. Nice background.
Yes,
I love
it's information. Our reality is information.
Yeah, yes. Have a couple articles to send you, by the way, that just completed.
Okay,
Well,
I'm trying to find time to write the opening chapter for the book.
Yeah,
I do have about 40 pages, but
I know you have a new book coming. All right.
Yep.
Anybody has any suggestions for this contest? Please forward it to me. Any other questions?
Vinesh, could you repeat again? It's a contest for what again? Just
Contest
I know, but for everyone else.
Yeah, it is a contest. We want entries from the people, the best techniques to raise the consciousness. How can one raise consciousness? The techniques. And it will be judged by panel of 3 or 4 or 5 judges, and then we will come up with some best techniques.
Okay, and just to stimulate the conversation, I gave a few examples, in the question and answer period, but I'm sure there's many more, and some might be more appropriate for certain individuals than others. So it's a very important concept, because the more people that we can get spiritually aware, consciously aware, the better humanity will progress. And that leads back to the question of Linda: why don't they do this to everybody? Why it's just a select few? Well, Vinesh is trying.
That is an unanswered question.
Yeah.
That is one of the unanswered question. Yeah. Why certain people have psychic experiences and most of the people don't?
Since praying is very important and we can actually get answers, maybe we should collectively get together and ask that the psychiatrists and psychologists of the world be cracked open, if you will.
Yeah, actually, that is a technique that is being used by many organizations. Like, for example, that group that I told you, ET Let's Talk, whenever they have these major field excursions, let's say Toronto, right? You join the Toronto group, you're going out, to try to call down a UFO, and it's a month from now on a Saturday. They will publicize to the whole group to say, pray and meditate for this group to have contact. So you'll have several thousand people that are members of that organization to be able to, put their intentions, okay, into this group being able to have success and have contact experiences. Because what you're doing is, if you've never seen a UFO, if you've never had any type of contact experience, again, you're a searcher, you're a seeker. But all of a sudden, you see this object in the sky, and the guy is telling, okay, I'm going to tell it to go to the left, and it goes to the left. I'm going to tell it to go to the right, it goes to the right. Right then and there, your vision of reality just explodes.
Exactly.
Okay, just explodes. Yeah. And so what we're trying to do is, how do we initiate these types of experiences where your vision of reality just gets destroyed? And you begin to open up to new visions of our reality. Because once you start doing that, then you go through all these changes that I mentioned before. Become more altruistic, more spiritual, more ecologically friendly, more consciously aware. Once you open up to consciousness, all these things are natural, the progression of change.
And it reminds me of what spiritualists have been doing for a long time, contacting those who have crossed over, the deceased, in order to bring proof, if you will, to those who are here on Earth, that is a possibility, which is another way of opening up one's consciousness, at least a little.
This is Chet Swanson.
Hi, Chet.
You
Go
know,
ahead.
Ray, how could one donate to your group? I have never seen one individual that has done so much as you have with so little money. And I know that
no money.
yeah, now I'm the businessman coming into this, but you know, when you give these talks, if you would just put out, here's how to donate, you know, and I think the money would be much better used than almost anything I can think of. You've got a book to put together now, and even with you, there's only so much brilliance that you have to be able to do this.
Well, thank you, Chet. I mean, I was going to pay out of my own expenses, for example, the people that have written chapters for a book. I wanted to give them hard copies of the book. So that costs money for, to buy it from Amazon and to ship it to these people. I didn't want to give them just a Kindle copy of it, So the graphic artist, I've been paying out of my own pocket for the graphic design. And I had very, very specific visions of what I wanted. The internet, we're going to have internet subscription because
anybody that's listened to you for the last hour.
Well, here it is, Chet.
How can they donate? You want me to work with you to put something out?
Sure. We have a 501c3 non-for-profit from the previous organization, the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Free Foundation. So if people can make a check, I will, deposit it in that 501c3 non-for-profit account.
We set it up so they can use their credit card, or a bank account or check, whatever.
Sure. Again, I'm very bashful when it comes with monetary things, but maybe you can help me do that,
Yeah,
for the website.
Guy out there.
Yeah, for the website, we're developing a website right now. I have a volunteer that's helping me to develop the website, and in that website, we're going to have a donate link, which is going to go directly into the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Free Foundation checking account, and so yes, if people want to send a donation, they could send me an email to info@experiencer.org, and then if they want to send the check, I'll give them a mailing address, and it'll before our website is up, and they just have to make it to the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Free Foundation.
Good.
And so that's that. But
beginning that you're asking and you're putting it out at the time that you're talking or doing the other things. But of course, out there in the world today, there's so many ways that people can just easily, instantaneously give you the money, and we can work with you on that.
Yeah, we're doing it via the website, which is going to be open on December 1st.
You need the money now. Anyway, I'm going to be pushy, and I'll get together with you privately on how we can go about this.
All right, Chet. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Chet. So we are running, or we have
just one thing. You have been so generous. If Ray needs a little money to have some talent to put this together, could you help us? It won't be much.
Definitely.
Okay, great.
Okay, we are running out of our time. We have reached our time. So I would like to thank again Ray and all the participants who joined, and wish you good luck, and hope that you have some experience also and your life changes. So let us give a big hand to Dr. Ray.
Thank you, Varesh, and thank you everyone else for your wonderful questions.
Thank you very much.
And as I said, info@experiencer.org. If you want to find out more information about our research study, just send me an email, and I should respond within 1 or 2 days. Thank you.
Everyone, thanks again.